Good afternoon, Tahilmi. My name is Faulina Sephia from Diplomacy 1, and today I will present my topic about the impact of US-Iraq Strategic Framework Agreement, or SFA, in support the stability of Iraq state after the invasion in 2003. This is the agenda for today. The first is background, and the second is review of related literature, and the third is theoretical framework, and the last but not least is research method. So the first part is background, and we jump into the background of the study. So the relationship between US and Iraq has been getting stronger since 2003, when US has a mission to help Iraq from a cruel government since President Saddam Hussein. So the end of Hussein's rule still exacerbated crime in Iraq because there were still many Hussein's insurgents. So in March 2003, US forces invaded Iraq vowing to destroy Iraq weapons of mass destruction, or WMD, and to end the dictatorial rule of Saddam Hussein. So in April in 2003, the war began, and the President Bush announced that US troops had started military operations into Iraq. The air operations have failed, so the US force focused on the ground operation. And then in April 2003, US, British, and other coalitions forces quickly overwhelmed the Iraq army. So 3 weeks after the invasion, Iraq civilians and US soldiers tore down a statue of Saddam in Baghdad Firdaus Square. And then on May 1, 2003, the invasion mission was complete. President Bush announced the end of major combat operations in Iraq from the deck of the aircraft carrier U.S. Abraham Lincoln. The lawlessness and several skirmishes in the country were dismissed as a stalemate by Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. So over the years, the crime crisis is still being felt by Iraq. This has made US want to strengthen Iraq's future state. Iraq now is a key partner for US and a voice for moderation and democracy in the Middle East. Iraq benefits from active legislature and is playing an increasingly constructive role. The US maintains strong and broad engagement with Iraq in the diplomatic sphere, eventually forming an agreement such as the Strategic Framework Agreement, or SFA, that formed by the US and Iraq in March 2008. This agreement includes a strategic war agreement and a security agreement agreed to protect US interests in the Middle East, also to help the Iraq people stand on their own, and then to strengthen Iraq's sovereignty. This agreement ensures vital protections for US troops and provide operation authorities for the force, so the US can help sustain the positive security trends and continue to transition to a supporting role. Currently, there is still a risk of threats in Iraq, such as attacks from terrorists and kidnapping across the country that affect US soldiers and Iraq civilians also. It may continue to destroy the stability of Iraq in other fields such as economic, political, and cultural damage. With the existence of this strong agreement between US and Iraq, these agreements contain something that will bring about big change and a bright future for country of the Iraq. And the next is research question. So the research question is, to what extent does the US-Iraq Strategic Framework Agreement support the stability of Iraq state after the invasion in 2003? And this research question divided into some questions also. What is the US-Iraq Strategic Framework Agreement and what benefits does it provide? And then why did the US-Iraq make a bilateral agreement, and what are its purpose? And then what are the US interests in the Middle East and how the relation between those countries? And then last but not least, how is the development of Iraq condition after the US invasion in liberating from terrorism after 2003? And then for the hypothesis, the result is if the US and Iraq remain committed to the strategic framework agreement, this agreement can be a solid basis for supporting the stability of Iraq state. So, why this topic is important? This topic is related to the study of international relations. The importance of choosing this topic also, it involves international issue and the US-Iraq bilateral agreement. US has played an important role in encouraging the progress and security of Iraq, and this is important for the analysis as the Himachal country help the other countries that really need assistance to stabilize their country. The importance of this topic also, the purpose of analyzing this research question is in order to find out the background of the conflict and find problems so that they can be verified with the data collected through the research later. And then the second part is review of related literature. The first is review of related literature on independent variable. The independent variable is strategic framework agreement itself from the book of Anthony, and the review of the book is the author analyzed the SFA itself and explained that in 2008 the US and Iraq signed an agreement related to the rights, responsibilities, scope, and duration of US troops in Iraq, especially one of the agreements in SFA. And the second is review of related literature on dependent variable. The dependent variable is the stability of Iraq state from the Journal of Royal Society of Medicine. And the review from this journal, the author analyzed the condition of Iraq after experiencing an invasion by the US. This condition is marked by an increase in the stability of Iraq in various fields, such as political stability and the government system, the security and the health, as well as increased friendship and bilateral relation between US and Iraq. This was based on the bilateral agreement between US and Iraq through the SFA agreement, which brought great change and influence to increase the stability of Iraq state. And the next is a review on related literature on both independent and dependent variable. This is from the Journal of Kenneth Ketchman and the review from this journal. So the journal described the SFA, which the long-term US-Iraq relationship with the aim of directing Iraq politics. US support for Iraq democracy, also support Iraq in regional and international organizations to improve their economic development and the stability, also the security for the Iraq state. And the third part is the theoretical framework. So the theoretical framework is based on the conceptualization and operationalization. And then for the conceptual diagram, the IV is US-Iraq Strategic Framework Agreement. It uses agreement concept, and for the DEV is the stability of Iraq state, and it uses the political stability concept. So what we want to see here is the conceptual and operationalization definition of IV first. So now is the conceptual definition of agreement. An agreement concept can be defined as aspect that arise when an offer made by one party is accepted by the other according to the law. An agreement is defined as a meeting of minds with the understanding and acceptance of reciprocal legal rights, and that is as the particular action or obligation with the parties' intent and action. And for the operational definition of the agreement, it uses partnership agreement, bond contract between US IRAC, and then placing capital, manpower and skills, and the operation in the business. Also the allocation of profits and loss, and then the resolve the dispute. And the next is the conceptual definition, conceptual and operationalization definition of GV. And the first is conceptual definition of political stability. Political stability concept is a variable of great importance in countries' evolution since across time. It was identified as causing low level of economic growth, but also it was presented as a consequence of poor economic development. And for the operational definition of political stability on GP, consists of social condition, economic growth, political development, and then the security. So, and the next is the relationship between IV and GV. So, SFA in support the stability of Iraq consists of U.S. mission in Iraq is dedicated to the lasting strategic partnership with the Iraq government and Iraq people in coordination with the global coalition to defeat ISIS, also invented in 2003. The U.S. Is assisting Iraq effort to reach the milestone in the country's liberation. U.S. also increased effort to stabilize liberate areas as Iraq continues to develop as a sovereign, stable, and self-reliant country. Iraq now is a key partner for the U.S. in the region, as well as a voice of moderating and democracy in the Middle East. The SFA between Iraq and U.S. provide the foundation for the U.S.-Iraq bilateral relationship, covering a wide range of bilateral issues including political relations and diplomacy, defense and security, trade and finance, energy, judicial and law enforcement issues, service, science, culture, education, and environment. It emphasizes the important relationship and common goals to the both countries. So, for the scope and limitation of the study, this study focused on the impact of U.S.-Iraq Strategic Framework Agreement on the stability of Iraq state, especially in the fields of political stability, economic growth, and the level health and security of the Iraq state. This study also aims to determine the specific bilateral relation between U.S. and Iraq, what are the forms of U.S. interest in the Middle East, and how the relation between those countries, and how is the development of Iraq condition. And the last part is research method. So, in this case, the U.S. and Iraq are cooperating with the aim to help Iraq achieve its independence from the war that took place due to the attacks of armed groups that trying to destroy Iraq's stability. So U.S. and Iraq saw the opportunity and certainly had gone through the experience that occurred in Iraq. The formulation of various strategies and everyone involved in digging up the information to find the ways to resolve the conflict in Iraq, especially this both country finally formed the agreement to increase the stability of Iraq to become a more prosperous country. So the author, in this case, the author used qualitative method that can be used as a method of observation based on the experiments, based on the samples, and based on the clear calculation that originate from the researcher view of phenomena in the world that reflect a viewpoint of reality and the factual. Why the author choose this qualitative? Also, qualitative research can easily help researchers to dig deeper information related to a research topic so that the information obtained can be used to determine research objective. And the next is naturally occurring data. So this research was conducted by the Bruce Alberg from his book is Qualitative Research Method for the Social Science, and he used ethnography to link these two variables. And the next is generate data. So there are two generate data here. The first is interview, means conversations, a few common problems in question formulation. In the interview from Bruce is divided into several parts, such as interview schedule, interview development, question about the problems, and interview, which are intended to direct communication and interview by the telephone. And the second generate data is focus group interview. The approach of the researchers take through focus group interviews is to learn through the discussion of physiological characteristics and on the conscientious, semi-conscientious, and unconscientious process among the various groups. To be more specific, a focus group interview is a guide or unfocused discussion that addresses a particular topic of interest or relevant to the group and researcher. Focus group session usually consists of a small number of participants under the guidance of the facilitator. So when focus groups are managed properly, it can become a very dynamic interactions among the group's members, spark a discussion in which one group member will react to comment the others. This group dynamics has been described as the synergic group effects. The resulting synergy allows one participant to draw from another or to exchange ideas collectively with other group members. So a much large numbers of ideas, issues, topic, even a solution to a problem can be generated through the group discussion than through individual conversation. So that's all my presentation. Thank you.